Okay, so if you would then, Thomas, tell us how interest has been in the ERX and maybe what's driving some of that interest of late.
Yeah, so at this stage, we've been pleasantly surprised, and I can say that interest has actually exceeded our expectations in the ERX. We expected fleets to come down here and enjoy the vehicle, enjoy the ride and drives, but the overall excitement has exceeded our expectations. Fleets are saying how they really see this as a practical solution for their operations, and hands down, the driving experience inside the truck. A lot of fleets will get out of the vehicle grinning ear to ear just because it is such a game changer compared to where a diesel truck is today, and how quiet it is and how fast it can accelerate and just the smoothness of the vehicle.
And so now, of course, it was last year, and you had the Hypertruck Innovation Council. That was with some big players. So have you had a chance to get some feedback, from the council? How's that been going?
So we've had a lot of our Innovation Council members, either we've gone out to them or we've come down here to Austin and let them experience the vehicle firsthand. Now, the really neat thing for us with this council, this group, and we got some of the largest fleets like, the Werners, the Schneiders, the Penske's, Riders, Anheuser-Busch's of the world in this group of fleets. The cool thing is that we know that these fleets are not only looking at our technologies, they're looking at others as well, and they've been able to give us real-world feedback on how our vehicle compares to some of the other vehicles they've experienced. And the thing that comes up time and time again is the other solutions, like let's say a BEV plug-in truck, it usually hits hurdles in terms of the cost of infrastructure build out, the limited range that you're going to get out of that truck. What they're finding with the Hypertruck ERX is it takes away a lot of those barriers, right? We have 1,000 miles of range. We don't need you to go build out infrastructure in order to drive this vehicle. But yet it's bringing forward the benefits of electric, the low emissions, the ability to drive on zero tailpipe emissions in city limits, those sort of things. We're giving you the benefits of electric, but without some of the often faced hurdles that come with an electric vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we've seen, of course, Cummins just this week, right, was talking about, say, going with the fuel agnostic powertrain lineup. And so if you would speak to that and the generator here, because currently it's on natural gas, but you've talked about being open to other fuels.
So we see the electric vehicle market kind of breaking into two separate buckets. One is going to be BEV plug-in vehicles, and then the second is going to be electric range extender vehicles. Now, this is where our focus is, right? The range extender. And what we see with this is, as we look at this vehicle, the electric axles stay the same, the batteries all stay the same. In order to be fuel agnostic or different fuel types or different generators, the only thing that we need to change is the generator under the hood. The rest of the vehicle stays the same. So that allows us to pull forward solutions like hydrogen fuel cells, and we can put a fuel cell in this truck and the rest of our powertrain stays the same. And that allows us to have a roadmap to be available in the near term here and have infrastructure ready to support that in the near term, or that's already built out today, but also be agnostic to what's to come in the future.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about RNG supply, because some folks have been concerned about that, the availability of RNG.
So these trucks can pull into over 700 stations already built out all across the US. And one of the questions is, well, am I getting conventional natural gas or am I getting renewable natural gas? And the whole RNG market has been skyrocketing as of recently. And actually this past year, we actually surpassed that more than 50% of the fuel sold at these stations actually came from renewable sources. So we're not dealing with a fuel that's like 1 or 2% of the fuel out there. I mean, RNG is prevalent and available at natural gas stations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now you are assembling your batteries here, and go ahead and share with us some of the advantages that brings.
Yeah, so we do have our own proprietary battery technology. It is a module that has lithium titanate-based cells inside of it. We actually use a Toshiba cell, and then we do all the packaging, the battery management system, the cooling systems around that cell. And what we found is for some of our applications, like when we need really high power, really long life out of the battery, this module is really the right choice. As you know, we can do full recharges in as little as about 8 minutes with this battery module. We can see cycle lives that are upwards of 4 or 5x the life cycles that a normal battery would go through. And so that allows us to expand or extend the life of the battery pack, but it also allows us to make the battery smaller than what would maybe go on a conventional BEV truck.
What I thought was interesting is you talked about, say, the laser weld. Could you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, so as we went on our tour, we actually went and saw these battery modules being made, and it's an array of battery cells that then we take together. We pull them all into a pack or into a module, and then, as you were mentioning, we laser weld the cells together. And this is a process that is very, very specialized to be able to have a very secure and low resistance welds to connect the cells, but it doesn't risk damaging them, right? If you use a normal welding process like spot welding, that generates a lot of heat that can actually damage the cells. We're using laser welding, which produces extremely low amounts of heat. You can actually weld it and then touch it, and it's not even hot to the touch, so that we can keep these cells safe.
And then a lot of fleets, right, they may shirk back when they see the initial high price tag. Then how do you handle that? How do you approach that then?
Yeah, so for fleets, when they look at analyzing a vehicle, it really comes down to what's the cost of operation over the life of that vehicle. So while the upfront vehicle cost of electric trucks might be higher, if you're able to supply them or recharge that battery or that truck with a lower cost fuel than diesel, you actually have the ability to decrease the operating costs over the life of that asset. Versus if you use a more expensive fuel than diesel, it's not only going to be a more expensive truck, it's then going to cost more to run it. And so that's what's really unique about the Hypertruck ERX is while the upfront vehicle cost is more than a diesel truck, the cost of natural gas and renewable natural gas in many instances is about a third the cost of where diesel fuel is today. And so from that standpoint, we can actually, over the life of a vehicle, actually reduce the operating costs for fleets.
And as you know, right, price of oil has been going up. There's a lot of global tension driving that, other factors. So do you see then as a result, right, more interest than growing in compressed natural gas and of course, RNG?
Yeah, so there's really two big drivers for fleets as they're considering new vehicle technologies. First is, what's the emissions benefits going to be? What's the ESG benefit, the climate change benefit? But the second is, what's going to be the operating costs of this truck? And if you can bring forward a solution that can actually reduce the cost of running for a fleet, then in some ways it's kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we go adopt that technology, right? Even if a fleet didn't have an ESG focus, which we're finding many fleets do, so that's great to see. But even if they didn't, if you can bring them a lower cost solution, then it's very easy for them to adopt. I think fleets often face hurdles when you maybe can bring them a technology that reduces emissions, but if you're going to cost them a lot more, then that's a very difficult value proposition that they need to weigh out to determine if it's something they want to do. But if you reduce emissions and you can reduce costs, it seems like a no-brainer.
And let's say fleets are interested then in demoing a truck. Go ahead and explain that process.
Yeah, so we've been doing a roadshow, ride and drives with these vehicles. The stage we're in today is we're having fleets come in, experience the trucks, and you can give us feedback, right? We're still in the development process of these, so we want to make sure that as we finalize development, that we really design these trucks to meet the fleet's applications. But from there, we're going to be going into controlled fleet trials later this year, later in 2022, where we'll actually be taking these trucks and actually running them in real-world applications with fleets, pulling their cargo, and really letting these trucks do what they're made to do and go move freight.
Okay. And then I'm wondering, of course, we hear about, say, electrified trucks, and a lot of people instantly think, California. But you are seeing additional states, though, right, have signed up for those Carb standards. So are you seeing that as a real opportunity then for the ERX?
Yeah, so one of the things that we had done a few months ago is we announced a long-range version of the Hypertruck ERX. So it actually has a up to 75-mile BEV battery pack range on it. And that allowed us to qualify for 3/4 of a ZEV credit. And so as we have these new credits coming forward, not only are the OEMs being mandated that they need to take advantage of them or comply with them, we're now even seeing new regulations coming forward that the fleets are getting mandated they need to take advantage of them. And so that's one of the unique things with this vehicle is it is able to qualify for those ZEV credits. And we're seeing that as a driving factor as well because as we go into 24, 27, there's new regulations coming out that from a regulatory standpoint, you're going to need to be in a vehicle like the Hypertruck ERX.
And then I'm wondering from a driver vantage point, obviously, Pete, your driver here, right, is thrilled with the truck. The truck has got, just a lot of capability off the line, very quick. And so, from that power vantage point, but also from an emissions standpoint, very high tech. So you think that helps with driver recruitment and retention?
We've had a lot of drivers in recently, and one of the common themes or quotes that we've heard is, "I want one," right? I want to drive one of these trucks. It's going to reduce fatigue, right? That's been a big thing we've heard from drivers. The loud noise and the rumbling of a diesel engine. Imagine sitting behind that for 10 hours a day, all day, every day. I mean, that gets tiring, right? Versus you move into a truck like this, it's a lot quieter. It doesn't have that rumble like a diesel truck does. It has very smooth, instant acceleration. There's just a lot of driver benefits in a vehicle like this. And so what we're doing is not only are we giving them a clean and energy efficient vehicle, but we're also giving them one that maybe even performs like a diesel truck or better than a diesel truck, which is something that drivers usually haven't seen with new technologies that are focused on clean technology.
And then you've said before, you kind of taken this like slow but steady wins the race kind of outlook, right, towards Hyliion, and so it seems as if even though you may have some critics, saying, "Come on, let's go ahead and get that product out," you're still taking that stance, then, right? Slow and steady wins the race, yeah.
Yeah. So our philosophy has been we've actually deployed a product into the field. We've got millions of miles on our hybrid system, and we've had a lot of really great learnings on that. Some of which have been around reliability, around how do wiring harnesses need to be made in order to properly last a million miles or the life of a truck, and things like that. So we've taken a lot of that same philosophy and pulled it into this vehicle, as well as we're copying a lot of the same processes or following a lot of the same processes that major OEMs and other players that have been in this field for a long time have followed. Because what we want to make sure is, as we go deploy these vehicles and actually put them in fleet operations, we want to make sure not only do they have a great driving experience, but they have a reliable driving experience. And so from that standpoint, we've expanded our testing and validation process on these trucks to make sure that as we go into production, we've got a rock solid product.
And it seems like it's a pretty tech-friendly truck then. The learning curve, that's been pretty approachable, yeah?
So we've had people who have CDLs, who don't have CDLs, that have come in, driven this truck. If you don't, as you saw today, we'll do it in a loop around here where you can drive it off the roads. And we've had everyone kind of get in the driver's seat and say, "Hey, this is pretty straightforward. This is almost like driving a car in some ways. It's just you're up off the ground a lot higher, and you're in a much bigger vehicle." But it's pretty self-explanatory. We still use the same controls that a normal diesel truck would use inside the cab, but under the hood, it's all electric.
Right, and not a multitude of gears, obviously, right? You've got D for drive, N for neutral,
R for reverse, and
P for park, right? Get your parking brake. So it seems like, again, that's going to make it more approachable from a driver standpoint. And then from a technician standpoint, I'm wondering too, it seems like, okay, thus far, right, that's been a fairly easy climb then for your technicians, right, to learn how to work on the truck.
So we've got a great group here that not only do the assembly of our systems, they also do the installs onto the trucks and the service when is needed. But one of the things that we've kept in mind is, we are going to go deploy these products. These trucks are going to drive all across the U.S. and there might not be a technician available that's trained on high voltage in a certain area. And so what we've done is we've designed it where the actual battery packs are kind of self-contained units. And so if there were an issue inside of a battery where you needed to replace a pack, you can actually unbolt that whole system and then rebolt on a new one, as opposed to needing to expose someone to the high voltage inside those batteries. And so we've really tried to design and develop this in a technician-friendly way in order to make sure, one, utmost priority is it's a safe system, and two, it's easy to work on.
Of course, the big push, right, on electric drive systems has been torque vectoring, right? So have you had a chance to really venture down that path? I'm thinking, say, from stability, traction, safety standpoint.
Yeah, so at this point, our goal right now is to really get the systems deployed and out there, and then some of those neat features like torque vectoring are things that we will be able to roll in time. We are integrating into the safety systems that are on the truck today, so we're complying with them. I think you saw some of the collision mitigation systems beeping as we were driving down the road, so we're in compliance with that. But we do see a really amazing opportunity that this technology just keeps evolving, and as we were talking about, one of the neat things is we can actually do over-the-air updates to this truck. So, truck could be sitting 500 miles away from here, and from this location we can upload a new software load to the truck, and the driver will accept it, and it'll be downloaded, and they'll have the latest and greatest on the technology and not need to down that truck at all and pull it into a service center.